Dr. Rebecca Branstetter, and I am here with the wonderful Adriana Pence. We have our coffee because, of course, it's coffee break school psychology. It looks like Adriana became a teacher for the money and the fame, and I'm here to have fun. So let's do this. Adriana, we're here to talk about a really important topic, one I know that is near and dear to your heart, and it's about preventing teacher and educator burnout. So just take a sip of your coffee and share a little bit about yourself and how you came to this beautiful work that you're doing in Kansas City, Kansas.
Yes. Okay. So I'm Adriana Pence. I was a teacher for 13 years. I've taught multiple subjects from kindergarten to SPED to art to fifth grade is the highest I ever taught, but I taught for 13 years in public education setting. And then I moved to HR, where I'm the HR relations coordinator. So in my role, I work to improve our morale, our staff recognition, so that we can keep people. I work to recruit and most importantly, retain our talented staff. I'm here to keep people happy. I love teaching. I think it's the best profession in the world, but I'm here to retain all of our staff. And as you know, school districts have thousands of employees, from everything from a pipe fitter to a school psychologist. And so how do I make sure every employee gets what they need, what makes them happy, how they feel recognized, so that we can keep our talent? So that's what I do, and that's my background. But I come from that teaching lens. So I tend to really understand what it's like to be in those trenches, what it's like to be in a building. And I taught through COVID. So I also understand that collective trauma we have and what I need. And I know I can figure out kind of what they need so that I can help keep them.
I love that. And yes, teaching is an amazing profession, and you are doing it for the money and the fame, but also,
Yeah.
um, we have these kind-hearted, amazing go-getter teachers and school psychologists and folks, and it breaks my heart because they leave within a couple of years.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, some of the real like street level challenges they have, but it sounds like your role is like a satellite level. Like you're looking
Yeah.
down and being like, okay, look at this system. And I love that because I think that, and tell me if you agree with me, that a lot of the work around burnout has been put on the worker and
Yeah.
not the workplace.
Yes, yes, I definitely agree. I can't tell you how many times I attended conventions and things towards the end of my teaching career before shifting into HR, where it was, don't forget your self-care, don't forget your self-care. And I'm somebody who's very passionate about self-care. So I've put in some of that work. However, speaking to thousands of people and just saying, don't forget, or go home and meditate, go home and do yoga, they're like, it depends on where you're at, right? Your mindset might not be able to listen. I don't have time to stretch, lady. What is self-care? What is taking care of myself mentally, physically? Teaching is hard. Working in a school system is hard. And so I agree with you. We put a lot of burden on the individual to fix how you feel. And it's not that easy. You can't just blink and say, oh, I love it here. It takes a team, it takes a village to make somebody feel seen and heard and want to do what they're going to do. And then they'll do it well, hopefully.
Yeah, I often say like self-care is done off the job, and we need
Yes.
strategies for on the job when the stress is actually happening. And we also need to look upstream instead of, how many bubble baths do I need to take to like compensate for all this stress? What is
Right.
the stressor? And I know
Exactly.
in your role, you look systematically. And so this was really for all those principals, teachers, admin, and leaders out there in the space, people who are passionate about supporting our teachers and educators. Can you share with us? I think we have like 3 tips. Good things come in threes, right? 3 tips or 3 initiatives that you've done in your district to kind of shift the lens from Adriana, you need to go bubble bath and work out more after
Right.
work to
Right.
the school district and systems really helping embrace these teachers and I know we've talked before, we've geeked out a lot on generational differences in your initiatives. So can you speak a little bit about generational differences and then also about how you sort of the 3 tips that you would recommend people out there consider for making it more of a workplace issue rather than a worker issue?
Absolutely. So when you're looking generationally, and that would be one of my tips is going to be around recognition, right? That's huge. And when you look at data generationally, right now we have a lot of Gen Z coming into the workplace. for the first time in a very long time, we have like 5 generations working together, and they all have different experiences that make them work the way they work. Your work ethic is different depending on it's affected generationally. And that's a hard conversation to have. It's an important conversation to have because we need to recognize those differences. So there is data, for example, on recognition, how often there was a study done to see how often different generations want to be recognized. Gen Z wants to be recognized multiple times a week, the highest. And then it kind of declines. Then there's also data on how they want to be recognized. And so I was pouring through this study, looking at the data of how, and you look at, for example, a boomer generation, really, they want that handwritten note. They like having those words of affirmation. You go down to someone in my generation, millennials, I also like to hear, attaboy, good job, Adriana. I saw that lesson, that was fantastic. Millennials, they want to win awards. They want to have that constant feedback, and they want to win. They want to be recognized and praised. And if we think about that, we think about that even as a parent, right? For example, this weekend, I watched my daughter dance, and my husband said, "Do they all get awards?" A lot of them get awards, yes. And so we're seeing that trickles into the workforce now. Now, if they get that recognition and praise, and if we adequately per generation take care of people, their work is going to be meaningful and their engagement is going to be high. In this same study, I was looking at data of engagement, and the highest engagement for happy employees was Gen Z. So if we can get them to a place where they're feeling supported and acknowledged, they're going to go the extra mile and do a fantastic job. The lowest engagement when given praise was my generation. And so that's very interesting data too. So really understanding all the different ages in your business, in your building, and why they might feel the way they're feeling, rather than saying, oh, their work ethic is not good. Oh, they don't want to come here. They don't want to do anything. Well, what are we doing as leaders that's supporting them and understanding what they need? What do they need? Recognizing them, touching base with them. You can't just let them off on Lonely Island to teach all day and never say anything to them. So as leaders, kind of looking at that generationally, especially as our buildings shift. And every building is different, but
That's fascinating stuff. And if you think about what Gen Z is, it's really the generation that first had the smartphone.
yes.
So they're the ones who are, some people call them the anxious generation, but having that constant feedback loop sort of, I think, I don't know, there's science behind this, but it feels like it's rewired people to like want
Yeah.
feedback. Like, am I okay? Did I do that right? Is that okay?
Yes.
And so that makes sense for me. And then it also, I don't know, what about my people? What about Gen X? What?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. Well, and that's interesting too. So I've got some of that data right in front of me. And so, for example, if we're looking at how frequently, so for Gen X, it was a few times a year was the top. And then some said a few times a month, and very small said once a week. And then, so going beyond that, the boomer said a few times a month was their highest. But that has changed. That has changed generationally, just in every generation, also before they were in the workforce, how they were parented. We were all parented differently. I was parented in a way where it was, you get this job, you do it well. Oh, that's your boss. You listen to your boss. That has shifted. And so what may come off to some leaders as rude or, it's not. They're just different. It's coming from a different place. I know in HR, I work with everyone from people who may struggle to open a file to people who I can build a website in 10 seconds. So, just recognizing all their strengths and the differences in that.
I love that tip. Okay, so the first tip is to think about generationally, the folks in your school building. Tell me a little bit more about how you recognize people, what methods you use. Tip number 2, like how can you recognize your staff in the school system? What are some innovative ways that you've kind of looked at that?
So similarly to that recognition piece that we just talked about, so I look at data. In most districts, if not all districts, you're going to collect some survey data, climate culture survey data. I pour over that data. I analyze that data. I organize it to see For example, what schools have the lowest amount of people answering the survey? That is a red flag to me about psychological safety. I can then go visit that school, see what the tone is, see how people are talking to each other in the hallway, see what people say to me immediately. I can also look at data and see where people are overwhelmingly filling out the data. Say I have a school where everyone has filled out that data. That's a school I'm going to go and say, hey, great job. Everyone felt safe enough to fill out this data. But I'm looking to see where people are concerned, what their concerns are. I look to see how their engagement is, and then I go visit and I can put into place what they need after that. So for example, I've had buildings reach out and I've looked at data where there was discrepancies in morale. I've gone, then I've seen what the issue is, and then I can come back to central office and say, hey, I need my DEI expert here. Hey, I need this ED here to kind of help with some coaching for this person because this is what's affecting the morale of this building. So I use a lot of that data, firstly, to see what I'm going to do. Secondly, recognition all the time. So since I've been in the district, we've implemented a lot of different ways to recognize employees. Everything from anytime we hire somebody, I immediately text and email to I'm constantly our new employees, anybody who's been here a year or under, I'm going to constantly reach out and see how they're doing, to big awards. So working with small businesses like Toyota, we do a teacher of the quarter. They get a car for the weekend, dinner, hotel stay downtown on the plaza. So little things like that sprinkled in. I've even worked with a local clothing store, and they donate gift cards, and I'll just go to a building one day. I'll spin a random wheel, go to the building and say, hey, good job, give them a gift card. Little tiny things like that. So it's all very intentional, from every single, hey, how are you? This is who I am, in a small text or email, to bringing out little prizes and things like that. But lots of awards, lots of recognition, wherever I can, I'm going to celebrate somebody. So.
And it's done, it's sort of done publicly so everyone can kind of see and appreciate what folks are doing. And I like that you're using that climate and culture survey strategically, because sometimes the people who need support the most are radio silent.
Right.
So could you give us a pro tip on, if you have one, as this is just coming to me as we're talking, for how to help your employees and your staff, from everyone from, maintenance on up to feel safe to come to you or their principal or their leader when they're not doing well. Because I watch Quit Talk. I don't know if you are. But and it just sounds like these folks reach a breaking point where they're like, it was this, it was that, and the other. And, from time to time, like they maybe were suffering in silence and didn't feel like they could go to folks, or sometimes they did go to folks and they didn't listen. And so how can we help people who we know are struggling, but maybe aren't vocal about it?
Right. So again, right now with what I do, I look at that data to guide where I visit first. But secondly, I make myself available. I make myself known. This is who I am. This is what I do. I'm here to support. It's about creating psychological safety with employees. And again, going back to generationally, we see that with X and Z. And so X, you see a lot of workers who are pull up your bootstraps. You're doing this. That was just a hard day. That's just part of the job. Then you have, don't say anything, right? You're having a hard day. Don't say anything. That's just life, And then you have Gen Z, who is that psychological safety is not there, and they may not feel comfortable. And so they'll suffer in silence and silence and silence until boom, I'm miserable here. I don't like what I'm doing. I'm quitting. Or I'm transferring somewhere else where I think the grass is greener, and it's all silence the whole time. So what I do as much as I can and this is just 2 years of data, right? Is to make myself as known to everybody as possible in a non-threatening, easy, I'm here to help, get to know you type of way. If you need to text me because you're having a hard time, go for it. There are 2 schools in particular that have a very young staff that I've worked with a lot, and I've seen a huge uptick. I mean, they will text me and say, hey, can you come and chat with me today on plan? But guess what? They're staying. And is every conversation earth-shattering? Maybe not. But because I that constant contact with me and them and just having my information, They know there's a friendly face. They know that there's somebody there to listen. You do get radio silence if they have gone somewhere else and been burned. That's hard, right? As leaders, we can't answer all questions all the time. But I just constantly am reaching out. This is my contact information. If you ever need anything, let me know. And then when I'm randomly in a place or presenting to staff, I do the same thing. Hey, this is me. I'd love to come visit you and celebrate you. And as much as I'm here to help. I'm here to help. So I'm constantly doing that. And you'd be surprised, it takes a while. One of the buildings I've worked with, it was probably about 4 times of meeting with employees to now I'll get spammed. When are you coming to the building? I have this and this and this and this. But it helps them and it's worked. So
People, I think, and tell me if you agree, just need to feel heard. Like they don't need Adriana to go solve their problem for them.
right.
Need to feel heard. And what really resonated with me for Gen X who hasn't been to therapy, which is like, it was the white knuckle generation. Like, I'll
Yes.
give you something to cry about and like rub some
Yes.
dirt in it and just, forget your feelings, be quiet. And so I can imagine if it's really hard to ask for help and there's a lot of white knuckling in the classroom.
Yep.
So that's really interesting to think about a generational difference in help seeking behavior, not being afraid to ask for help, and going radio silent. So it sounds like just having a presence
Yeah.
and being an available, and that's actually what school psychologists do, which is sometimes you're just being available, my door is open, and kids will come to you. And then there's also the quiet kids where you're like, I'm just gonna go do a quick check-in.
Right.
And so I'm just like, okay, I'm just first amazed, like how many teachers are in your school district?
A lot. So we have thousands of employees. We've got 48 schools. So a lot. And so you figure your elementary schools are a little bit smaller and that's all the way up to high schools. There's a lot. And with what I do, there's definitely that it's difficult, right? How do you decide somebody's issue or what they're struggling with or what they need is more important than someone else? And so at the end of the day, it is hard. I want to meet with everybody. I want to talk with everyone. And so that is something that I'm working on, is having that boundary and not taking some of that pressure. I can do what I can do. I'm here for as many people as I can reach. And it's also kind of a long game, right? So I make so many connections a year and I'm a big presence in some buildings. And then the next year I'm a bigger presence in others. That's a learning curve for me, for sure. But I have to be very organized. I have I make a schedule. And then again, data helps me kind of figure out initially how to take one person and be everywhere. We have thousands of employees. And when we're talking about this retention and burnout, I'm also thinking about leaders. I'm thinking about our psychologists, our counselors, especially our counselors, our social workers, our psychologists. That's heavy work. And in education, they all matter. The whole system matters. So making sure everyone's seen and heard. I love my teachers, but not just the teachers. It's a team, right? So
Let's get out your dream journal for a second. Like, what would be on your vision board to scale this? Because I'm imagining folks out there listening, like, well, we don't have an Adriana. Like, we don't have that role. They're thinking about, well, I need to create that. I need to clone Adriana somehow. The technology might be there with AI. I'm not sure. We're working on it. What would you recommend for leaders out there who are listening and saying, yeah, that sounds great. But I'm just slammed. Like, how do I even begin to start this initiative? Do you have any an extra shot of espresso for our leaders out there on the ways they could, just small things they could do to get started, or a key take-home message from what you're saying if they don't have the staff or personnel, deploy someone amazing such as yourself across a district?
That's difficult for a tiny shot. You know how this is the stuff, right?
Stressful shot, okay.
This is the stuff that keeps me up at night. Like I toss and turn, and this is what I'm here to do, I feel like. And so I think about that constantly, and it starts building level, right? I am only going to do so much. And again, that's the leaders. It's the leaders who make a huge difference. And so for me, it's almost like, do you know like love languages? It's kind of like figuring out your building's love language, figuring out what is my leadership like? What does my staff need? Really trying to get a pulse on your staff. You look at your climate and culture survey data. Take away any of those self-defeating thoughts. Do not be take the ego away. This is just data. This is how the staff perceives this. It's nothing personal. The staff perceives this as this. They may perceive me as this. And I think that's hard as a leader, but doing that and then seeing, okay, no matter how I feel, they're not happy with this. Or what can I do? Or no matter how I feel, I'm getting this response when I do this. What can I do to shift that? It might feel like an imposter syndrome. It might feel a little lame to do little celebrations all the time. It might feel off. The more you do that, the more the staff will catch on and they just want to feel seen and heard. Little things, checking in with your staff, checking in, the same thing as I do, they can do that on such a better scale because they're there with them every day. Just popping in, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? You can tell. I look a lot at body language. I can tell if I walk into a building and they're like, you know what I mean? Like they don't even want to see me coming. Something's up. You know what I mean? I'm assuming in your building you can feel the same, right? You can tell if they need you or not. So check in with them. Create ways to recognize employees. I think sometimes I hear that I hear from leaders that they think that some of that's all for naught, right? Maybe the staff doesn't enjoy those celebrations. It's just another thing to do. No, it's not. It really matters. Everything from that little sticky note you left to recognizing an employee of the month in front of all of their peers. That feels insignificant. It's not. It's not. And those little check-ins mean everything. It shows you care. Now you can't do that and then go radio silent because they don't match, right? So I would say figuring out your building's love language, figuring out your people, what they need, and checking on them and recognizing them. That's what I would say. And that I think would make a world of difference. And I know it's a lot. Being a school leader, oh my gosh, there's so much that's on their plates. But it would make everything a little bit more harmonious if that were the case.
Well, and it sets a cultural tone for your
Yes.
building of
Yes.
appreciation and gratitude and open communication and psychological safety.
Yeah.
And I think if I could give an extra shot as well, I think our leaders need this just as much as, if not more, than our teachers. So if you're a teacher, school psychologist, whoever's out there, just imagine the life of a principal. No one is coming to you being like, hey, Principal Pence, just want to let you know, no problems today. Like that just, they don't get a lot of those attaboys
Nope.
recognitions that they are looking for as well. So if we
Yep.
can create a community in which we are all in this together, we are all supporting each other, we are all recognizing how hard this is and how hard we're working. I mean, some
Right.
of those admin, they're the last car in that parking lot, right?
Right.
And they get a nasty gram in the morning from, a parent or someone, and they're like, why am I
Yep.
doing this? And I think we need to just be as equally thoughtful about appreciating our leaders in the building too.
100%, 150%. Yes. Yes. It's a team. I mean, it really is. And then from my standpoint, it's just this big system, right? And we've got to figure out ways to all kind of work together. And so that transparency, the ego away, us understanding we all have the same goal, and all appreciating each other in a perfect world, we can get there, right? Those are the most harmonious buildings.
Yeah, I love it. And we always say in our thriving students collective community, be the marigold, because we know that marigolds are plants that when you put them in a garden, they help everything around it thrive. They ward off bad chemicals, bad bugs. And so when we can plant a conscious garden of marigolds, it actually helps everyone around us thrive. And then we know from the research, I love to geek out on research, that moods are contagious, which is why you can walk into a meeting and be like, everything's, whoa, something funky in here. No one said anything.
Yeah.
So moods are contagious. Negative moods are highly contagious. But I think we can tell just from this podcast that positive moods are contagious, because I'm fired up now. I'm about to send 10 thank you emails to people. Like the gratitude, no ask email. Do it right now. Open up your inbox. No ask, just email a leader, email a teacher, email anyone and be like, hey, I see you, I notice you, and I thank you for what you're doing. And it's not just perfunctory and it's not corny. We need this as a
Yeah,
community so that we can be a garden of marigolds and helping each other thrive.
agreed. Agreed.
And you're the most amazing marigold. I'm so glad I stumbled upon you in your work. If people want to learn more about how to support in their school district and about your role, do you want to drop a social in here that people can follow you?
So you can follow me. I'm on LinkedIn, just my name, Adriana Pence. And then our district is KCKPS. And so I run all of our KCKPS HR. That's the handle on all of our things. So then you can see the two perspectives. On LinkedIn, you'll see me and you'll hear a lot of my opinions like this. And then on our socials, I do a lot of what we do to support our employees. So you could kind of get a glimpse into both.
I have glimpsed into both, and it's very inspiring. So thank you so much for being with me today on Coffee Break School Psychology, and for indulging in a coffee nerdy coffee date with you. I will drop links to resources and studies and things that Adriana shared, as well as her socials. And thank you so much, Mary Gold friend.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.